aquí, a ver. Ah, ya. Hello, everyone. A warm greeting to everyone watching, teachers and classmates. My name is Samantha Costa, and today I am joined by teacher Flor Smith. And this segment would help us better understand the issues surrounding bilingualism in Colombia. And what better way to do that than by talking with teachers who had concrete experiences and who can offer a perspective grounded in reality, right? So, Teacher Flor, thank you for accepting this invitation. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course, teacher Samantha. Hello everyone, my name is Flor Smith, a 10th semester student in the Bachelor program in Foreign Language with an emphasis on English at UNAD. Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. I actually find it very valuable that you are a student at UNAT like me because we have a different kind of education, as you may know. Like we have more autonomy and surely with very varied experiences in different educational contexts. In this instance, would you mind if I record this interview? This material will only be used for educational purposes.
Sure, no problem. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So to start with this interview, I know you had the opportunity to experience two very different educational settings. First, your internship at a public school and your work experience at a private institution, if I'm not wrong. And I actually think that gives you a very comprehensive perspective because in Colombia, there's a lot of talk about English for all and some bilingualism policies that have been in place for many years. So, based on what you've seen during your internship or observed in your work as a teacher, how do you perceive the relationship between what the policies say and what actually happens in the classroom?
Having had the opportunity to see both sides, I can tell you that the English for all policy sounds very nice, but in practice it deeply unequal. At the public school where I did my practicum, English was almost an idealized concept, and on top of that, we have large class size, sometimes up to 40 students, very limited resources, and many students with learning difficulties or family problems. I learned a lot there, especially how to improvise and connect with the students. In the private school context, students are immersed in the language for a young age, and we teachers are bilingual. English is taught as a necessity, not something abstract. So yeah.
Yeah, actually, that is very true. Like that gap that you describe is very real. And we actually see it every day in every context that we teach. It has also sparked an interesting discussion about the relationship between teaching English and cultural identity. Because sometimes we focus so much on the language and the English speaking cultures that it seems as through our own culture takes a backseat. And so, as a teacher, how do you see that? Do you think there's a risk that students will disconnect from their own culture?
I've noticed that a lot, especially in private schools. There, everything revolves around Halloween, Thanksgiving, and other holidays. Students know more about U.S. history than they do about their own region or Colombia. Sometimes you ask them about local traditions, typical food, or regional festivals, and they have no idea. As a teacher, I try to strike a balance. For example, when we work on vocabulary, I include words relate to the region, typical food, and local traditions, not just dictionary words.
Yeah, actually, that is very interesting. I think that is very helpful in this context. So this idea of connecting English with our own culture is an approach worth pursuing. And not to lose our heritage, but rather to integrate it into bilingualism or true bilingualism. And here at UNAT, we've been working on the basic learning rights or DBA and the suggested curriculum, right? So, from your experience, how have you seen these documents being used in this context? Do you think they are useful guide or do they become too rigid?
And that's a good question. Of course, I'm familiar with them. I have to be. On the one hand, it's helpful to have a framework to know what the students are expected to learn at each level. But on the other hand, if you follow them to the letter without considering the context, they can become a straitjacket. I think the key is to use them as a foundation but adapt them.
Yeah, actually, we both know that. We both know that we actually have to adapt these materials or these resources in in order to have like good teaching experiences. So, how do you think or how do you perceive that our training teacher as training teachers, we must respect each student's learning pace and style. But in the other hand, we also have to meet the standards that dictate what students should know in each grade. So how do you think a teacher can manage that tension?
It's a real challenge. I think the first step is to accept that not all the students will reach the same goals at the same time. That means assessment can be the same for everyone. We need to consider more flexible assessment that focus on individual progress rather than meeting a uniform standard. To give you an example, in many public institutions, there is high dropout rates and high assessing to the pace of learning, and if even more uneven. It's frustrating, but it's the reality.
Yeah, that's actually a very hard reality that we face as teachers. So now that we discussed this, let's change the subject a little bit. Let's talk about technological tools in educational institutions. So, from your experience and as a student at UNAT, where technology makes our education possible, how do you see the role of technology in teaching English? What do you distinguish a more superficial use of technology from use that truly contributes something meaningful to learning?
Well, I think the difference lies in the intention behind it. Using technology just for the sake of using it's pointless. If I just play a video to fill time, that's superficial. On
Yeah.
the other hand, if I design an activity where students have to create something, research, or collaborative online, then technology becomes an effective teaching tool.
Yeah, that is also very, very, very true. But you also know that not everyone in Colombia has the same access to the internet, right? Like computers or devices, like a cell phone. And so, as a teacher, how do you deal with this situation?
The first thing is not to get frustrated and not to think that it can be done without technology. Sometimes we get anxious because we don't have a projector or internet access. But we have to remember that for decades, big people taught without those things and achieve incredible results. And we need to understand the context well and make the most of what we have.
Right, we actually have like all the tools that we need. So that is actually a very good point. And another key issue is the inclusion of students with disabilities or maybe a special educational need. In your training, have you had these kind of opportunities to address this issue as it applies to teaching English or not?
This is one of my biggest concerns, but from what I've been able to learn and observe, I feel that as teachers, we have the tool to ensure that all the students can participate in the learning process and achieve the expected goals by adapting to their specific needs.
Okay, so and beyond the regulations, what do you think it will really mean for a student to be truly included in an English class? I mean, not just present in the class, but participating and learning. Like, what challenges do you foresee in that process?
Well, true inclusion would mean the student isn't sitting in a corner doing something else while the other learn English, that they participate in the same activities adapted to their abilities and can demonstrate what they've learned in some way, even if it's different.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that is something that I actually always tend to do with my activities, like that is truly inclusive and not just something superficial. So we have covered many topics. We have talked about policies, about identity and curriculum, technology, and inclusion. So this was a very good opportunity. So thank you so much for this conversation. It had it has been very valuable to me. So I wish you much success in the final stretch of this semester, right, and your degree at UNET.
Likewise, it was an enriching experience. Thank you for the invitation.